You were Canada's first Black Arab Canadian Muslim spy. You then became the first Muslim woman at CSIS to wear a hijab. It seems incredible to me that in your first 4 years in the service, you were the only intelligence officer in counterintelligence who spoke Arabic at HQ. How is that? What does that say about the organization at the time?
You know, the intelligence and security community in Canada, as well as in the UK and in the US, is predominantly male-dominated. There is gender imbalance in these organizations, and in terms of racial and ethnic backgrounds, it is at another level. Like the entrance of people who are racialized started in 2000. I was that first generation in Canada. And I have to also say that at MI5, I don't recall encountering many racialized officers as well.
Let's fast forward to 2005. July 7th happens, and then July 21st happens, and then you get a call. Walk me through that conversation.
Yeah, I start my book with this conversation because, you know, it was pivotal to everything that happened afterwards. I had, you know, a year before it, I had experienced discrimination in the workplace. My security clearance was questioned, and I went through, you know, a lot of some negative experiences from the organization. That had finalized. I had submitted complaints, apologies were made, and we had put everything behind. And I chose at the time to go and work on the Russia file and left counterterrorism altogether. And, you know, lo and behold, I'm requested to go and work in London because I was identified as the only one in the Security and Intelligence Alliance, you know, between the US, UK, New Zealand, and Australia, the Five Eye Alliance. There was a communique that they needed intelligence officers, people who already have top secret clearance and can just go be plugged into the work of MI5, as well as the linguistic and cultural knowledge that I brought to the table.
You are of Ethiopian Yemeni origin. You grew up in Egypt. You also speak French, Arabic, Amharic, Oromo, Harari, and Somali. You were quite the catch for MI5.
I was, indeed. And, you know, my contribution was from day one. I walked in and there was so much work for me to do in terms of identifying.
Before we get to the work that you did, you walked in and something happened. So
what happened was, you know, my supervisor and I, the head of station, who's identified as David in my book, at midnight decided to walk in, just say hello, and meet the people that I would be working with. When we walked into the building, I opened the door first into Tam's house, MI5. I opened the door and two guards rushed to me with their guns and said, freeze. And David had to run in front of me and tell them that we're with the Canadian Security Intelligence Service.
So they had their guns drawn on the woman who would become instrumental in helping them catch the terrorists.
There was that level of suspicion. There were people within CSIS that felt that as a Muslim I didn't belong, that, you know, that work of an intelligence officer and being a Muslim were antithetical. And so, you know, the fact that there was, you know, a demand for me, a demand for my skills, and real contribution and acknowledgement at the highest level in the UK.
And what do you hope people will take away from your book?
You do need people with you know, people like me in the organization. There's so much value. I saved lives, you know, so there is no greater, you know, there's no greater example of why diversity is really essential to this kind of work.